Yo, what's up, guys? Good morning. Welcome to another episode here of the Sprite University podcast. We have a very exciting episode today because we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to most people's hearts, and that is caffeine. It was for mine as well, and we're going to have a nice little debate and maybe give you some tips and tricks to be able to start letting it go or find freedom from it if you are struggling with it, or learn to embrace it if it's something that is a big part of your life and it brings you a lot of value. So we have a great panel today. First, shout out Tristan from Lifeline Academy. Welcome back.
Hi, so good to be
Hello.
here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And the newest member of the crew, Mr. Andy Holt. Welcome, brother.
Hello. Hi, Joe. Hi, Tristan.
Hi.
Good to see you, man. And before we start, guys, if you really vibe with this connection with what we've been talking about, you can connect with each one of us on our separate YouTube channels and our Instagrams as well. So definitely, I invite you to check those out as well for specific content that could help your life. So, guys, let's dive right in as always. Caffeine. Let's go around the panel here, and can you kind of tell me where you started your caffeine journey and what caffeine means to you in today's day and age?
Cool. So, if you had told me a year ago that I'd be on a panel talking about caffeine and perhaps being against coffee, I would not have believed you. Coffee has been I've had such an interesting relationship with it. I used to be a smoker. I started smoking really young, and coffee kind of went hand in hand with it. It was kind of like coffee and a cigarette. Those two were very much linked. And I managed to hypnotize myself to stop smoking, but the coffee was something that kind of held on a little bit longer. And I kind of managed to stay off of it for a while, and then I would always kind of come back like a good old friend. And this last year, about a year ago, I was hitting quite an intense burnout. My adrenals were just like done. I had, been really pushing it in my business, really sort of in that hyper masculine drive. And yeah, I realized that coffee was something I'd have to like really severely start to get honest with myself of the effect it was actually having on my body. Because it's one of those things, right? It's like it's a buddy, you don't want to look at its faults and really get honest with it. And so for me, yeah, it's been about 9 months now, no coffee at all, and I'm feeling amazing. So yeah, we'll get into more of that just now. But Andy, over to you.
That's fantastic, Tristan. 9 months. Well done. No withdrawals. Well, you've probably got past that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my journey, I have had periods in my life where I've drunk way too much coffee, even sort of right before bed, midnight, that kind of thing. And I started to consciously reduce coffee around about 4 years ago now, and I'm now in a really good place with it. I only drink high quality coffee, by the way. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, and my main hobby is biohacking. So everything that I do, I look from a health perspective as best I can. Now, biohacking itself, it's not actually a science. It's all fringe technology. It's a bit like technology, really. It's all on the fringes, so there's a lot of experimental. But I started to read a lot about coffee and the effects of coffee from also with diet. And I now set myself a set of rules. So I won't have coffee within, let's say, 30 minutes to an hour after waking up to allow your sort of cortisol to settle, because after you wake up, you've got certain stress hormones, so you don't want to activate that with more coffee. So I tend to have coffee late in the morning, and I limit it to 2 or 3 cups a day. And I would never drink after 3 p.m. in the afternoon either. So that's my kind of rules. And I think a little bit of coffee for me is good. I'm not addicted to the stuff I used to be. Certainly if I have a coffee in the evening, I just can't sleep, So I think a little bit of coffee in moderation is okay. It's funny because there are certain, I think there are some antioxidant properties to it. And if you look at the typical diet in the West, it's that bad. it's probably the only antioxidants that we actually consume. And people are not. You can get antioxidants from better places like certain berries and things, but people don't eat that. So the coffee is probably the only antioxidant that most people consume. So yeah, I just limit it, but I love it, and I look for it's part of my morning routine. You know, when I journal and read, it's like a little ritual. So I do it longhand, I grind beans and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a bit snobbish, but
I love it.
and look at this. I broke my own rules today just for this because
for today.
I've already had my 2 cups and I'm having another one.
Don't lie to us, Andy. That's whiskey.
Yeah.
Irish coffee.
Well, yeah, man. So knowing you a little bit, Andy, you seem like somebody that doesn't really have that like strong of an addictive personality. And it's very interesting to see from my perspective. I know a couple people in my life that are like that. And it's just like, because I'm the opposite. Like if I have a little bit, I'm gonna have a lot. So I can't do that moderation words. I don't even say that word because it's gonna give me bad juju. But I do respect when I meet someone that just doesn't have it, and it's just interesting to meet people like that. Is there anything, Andy, that is like a little bit like of a, I want a little more if I have a little?
Just my like things that I enjoy on the fun side of things, like traveling and meeting new people, that kind of thing. That's what I'm addicted to. But yeah, in terms of diet, and I've got pretty good self-control on diet. And do you know where that comes from? Just seeing the results. If you ever shift your diet and you see great results, you get addicted to that. So I think you can get addicted to results. Yeah, there we go. Let's get addicted to results instead.
That's great, man. I tell people like that, coach and stuff, like, hey, get addicted to just being happy and alive. Like we're always going to be hooked on something. Might as well just be, living healthy and doing all that. So by the way, guys, if you do want coaching, you can hit me up down below for a consult, and we can help you get off whatever substance you're dealing with and help you find that freedom. So for me personally, when I started drinking caffeine, I think it was like my parents wouldn't let me have it growing up. My mom always drank coffee. And I think it was when I got into like middle school, I finally started to drink soda with caffeine in it. And so Mountain Dew is my go-to. But it was weird for me because whenever I drank soda, I would get tired whenever I'd have caffeine. So caffeine actually had the opposite effect for me. It would make me kind of want to just pass out. I think it's already because I already have like a lot of energy, it just like overstimulated the circuits. Now, when I got later into my life and I quit marijuana and started on the sober path, I did start drinking like kombucha and those kind of caffeine drinks. And I would notice I would start to get the buzz. I would have a drink and I would just be like, ooh, like this feels good, because I wasn't using other stimulants. I wasn't really eating much junk food or anything. So what happened from there though, is once I started noticing that, okay, I'm like kind of hooked on this. And what I would do, I thought I was off caffeine because I stopped drinking the kombucha, stopped drinking energy drinks. But I started eating copious amounts of dark chocolate, which Tristan, I know you're going to have some insight on this one as well. And so every night before bed, I would have a big tray of keto brownies because they're healthy, right? There's almond flour, there's no sugar. I was like, these are perfect for me. But I'd be up to like 4 a.m. I was like, I wonder why that is. And it was humbling because I went around for a year saying I was off caffeine. I'm off caffeine. And then finally someone's like, yeah, dude, like dark chocolate has caffeine. I was like, fuck. So that was an ego identity shift. And then I had to actually try to quit. And for me personally, there was this bake shop we had. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. It was a keto bake shop, and they had these peanut butter dark chocolate bars. And I was just absolutely addicted to them. And I've shared this story before, but I really had to actually like implement learning how to quit and like slowly wean off and go through the whole withdrawal process. So actually, I think that's a good segue. Tristan, how was the withdrawal process for you when you came off coffee?
So coffee, again, like Andy was saying, it's the ritual. I think it's more than actually what it is. It's the ritual. I think we spoke about this in the last time. If you smoke weed, it's the rolling up of the joint. It's the whole feeling that you get from the ritual of it. And so for me, it was that little check-in time with my husband, little plan session in the morning, and I'm also was a bit of a coffee snob as well. So we had our really fancy coffee machine, grind the beans, the smell, and all of those things. Our brain creates these associations to smell, to textures, to taste. And so yeah, it was quite a process to actually recognize, hey, you know what, my body is not, I'm extremely cortisol sensitive. So my body goes haywire when I have even potatoes, which can affect your cortisol levels. And so I noticed that was really affecting, that was kind of what was pushing me to burnout, was high cortisol levels. So I knew it was time, but like with any habit, we kind of got to switch it out. So for me, I moved to cacao, really beautiful, wholesome, kept the same ritual of it. I'll give you if you guys watch to the end, I will give you my secret recipe. So I still maintained that beautiful ritual. And what I realized with it was, so the coffee withdrawals itself were quite gnarly. I got the headaches, really low, super fatigue, super low energy. Like there was just no juice in my tank. But again, that was definitely because of the burnout as well. And what I found with the cacao, because it is so full of magnesium, calcium, copper, it has very low, actually, in sort of when we equate how much caffeine coffee has versus what is in cacao, and I'm talking like real, pure, no sugar. It's kind of felt, so the difference was like coffee is kind of a kick up the ass and like, come on, get on with your day. Whereas cacao is like a gentle, like, we can do this, like a soothing coach, like, come on, let's start today. And so I definitely found that transition of moving from the coffee to the cacao still gave me the sense of ritual, that sense of comfort, but without any of the gnarly side effects. So if I go a couple of days without drinking the cacao, I don't get the headaches, I don't get withdrawals. Nice. I enjoy the ritual of it. So yeah, it was a gentle transition, I think. And cacao is extremely heart opening. So it's a very different energy. The coffee is quite like a masculine, and cacao is, definitely more gentle, more motherly, more nourishing. That's kind of my experience of it.
Well, I was actually wondering, Tristan, when you were sharing that you're cortisol sensitive. I'm wondering, like, how do you think that plays a role in being a woman and, being in your feminine, right?
Mm-hmm. I think maybe lots of women can relate to this, but I'm an entrepreneur. I've had my own business for over a decade now. And, our sort of society is this, you kind of have to go, go, go. And masculine mode is great for that. It gives us motivation, makes us feel really productive. But when a woman really follows and honors her body, we recognize how cyclical we actually are, and that energy ebbs and flows. And for me, I run my business like that now. I literally, I've divided all my tasks into the 28 days. So I can see when my cortisol levels are naturally higher, I am more productive. I am more motivated, more focused. When it starts to dip, there's a natural lull, and being able to honor that rest. Whereas with coffee, I would just keep bypassing that. I'd just be on. I drink the coffee and then I get to work. And I really lost touch with that natural cyclical. And I would say far more productive now in terms of the quality and what I'm putting out and the way that I'm being able to show up for my clients by honoring myself, as opposed to creating a bit of an artificial stimulation that I was getting from the coffee.
Well, that's great, Tristan, because the world needs more feminine women. As you know, there's a rise of masculine women in the world, and so we appreciate that as guys, just women, like girls that are in touch with who they are, and I think it's definitely missing right now. But you guys are out there, so you just gotta look.
Drink more cacao, ladies.
Just railing lines of cacao. Give me that femininity. So speaking of, and I'm going to turn it over to you in a sec here, Andy, but we do have the Men of Now community that just launched. So speaking of masculinity and femininity, so Andy is a part of it as well, and that's how we met, kind of through becoming a part of that together. And it's essentially a place where men can come and learn how to level up, embrace their masculinity as well as their femininity, because hey, we all have both sides of us.
Gotta marry both. Yeah.
Want to marry both. And it's a place for entrepreneurs. You can come, you can, you know, if you have products or anything that you're selling, coaching services, you're more than welcome to have other people, you know, promote that and help you along that journey for yourself as well. So it's very cool in that aspect. And also there's no hierarchy, right? There's not, it's some groups, you know, you have the leader and then it's you know, do this, this, and this. And if you break any of these rules, you know, you're fired. We do have guidelines and boundaries, but we're more like, hey, we're all coming in here on equal. We're all going to learn from each other. And as well, if you have a channel or any sort of social media, it's a great place to come and promote that, get on different shows. So if you are interested in that, you can, let me just put a link here and you can connect with both Andy and I. So let's see, menofnow.us. So here is the link, and this is Andy's channel as well. So check that out for some tips and tricks at home. You can a real handyman, love it, and true masculinity right there. There's like there's a Kevin Hart episode where he was talking about like watching porn and stuff, and he caught his wife watching it, and she's like, yeah, I watch porn all the time. He's like looking through her browser history, and it's just like tall men changing light bulbs.
Oh, that is hot. That is hot. Real handyman.
Real handyman. He's like short, you know, so he's like, what the fuck?
Tall men changing light bulbs?
So yeah, guys, connect with us down there, and, you know, and reach out to Andy and I if you have any questions about the group. So Andy, you know, you're being a man. How does coffee help your, like, you know, masculine presence in this world and getting stuff done, all that?
Yeah. So obviously, Joe, we talk a lot about things like fitness, training. I think it's well known. If you think about coffee, it is a stimulant. So if you have problems with cortisol, if you're naturally anxious, then you've got to be, I'd say you'd have to be more careful with coffee than not. I'm on the other side of that. I've got no issues with kind of anxiety or anything. So I don't really get that. The only thing that coffee does to me, if you have it later on, is keep me awake. But I don't suffer from any kind of cortisol issues. But if you think about coffee, taking coffee, you get up early in the morning, you want to go and work out, having a bit of coffee just wakes you up. It is a drug, let's be honest. It's not the best way to use it, but you can use it if you're super tired, because it will kind of wake you up. And one of the things that it does do is it motivates your metabolism. It can get you moving that way. You know, it also does things like, so because it's a stimulant, it opens up, is it AMPK pathways for like training, building muscle, things like this. It can do all sorts of things like that. But yeah, so I tend to work out in the morning. One of the things that I do is sometimes I'll do like jujitsu 6 a.m. So I'll get up super early.
I just started.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So like 6 a.m., you know, you're like waking up at 5 and I'm like 10 to 5. I'm like, right, I'll have a coffee. So I'll try and leave it, never straight away. I won't have coffee as soon as I get up, maybe like 45 minutes after. Just a black coffee on my way to jiu-jitsu. Or if sometimes I'm like working out at the gym. I think it's great for that. The other thing that coffee does as well, because you talked a bit about keto. So I'm been low carb diet for years now, and I cycle between full keto or slow keto, if you like. So like more like low carb, sometimes strict keto. When you're in a fast, coffee's fantastic. You can go 3 days without food, just on a maybe water and a bit of black coffee. There's not really any calories in coffee, and it just completely takes away the hunger. So, but I think people abuse it. There's quite a history of people abusing coffee when they're fasting, prolonged fast, and it can be very bad for you when you need to rely on it to keep down your hunger, whether you're doing intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting. So there is a use case there, but you just have to moderate it. You know, you've got to stick to some rules with your coffee. That's it. Or cut it out. If you can't stick to the rules, you need to. It's a bit like an alcoholic. You know, Joe, you know this, right? You either have one, you either have no drink or all the drink. You can't have one drink, can you?
No.
Exactly. So you need to cut it out fully. I think cutting it out would be better than lots and
trying
lots
to
of
force yourself to moderate
coffee. Yeah. And
I think
reading before, I've come up with some stats here. I've not got the studies to hand, but I was just doing a bit of reading in a couple of the biohacking books, and the optimum is 2 to 3 cups a day, right? And that can do things like even reduce certain cancers, with the antioxidants and things, if you have a small amount of coffee. Once you go to 6 cups, it goes in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Oh.
Because
we're talking black coffee, like no sugar, no milk. I think that's important.
Literally black coffee,
yeah. Most people don't really enjoy the taste of it. It's more of the feeling of it, and they put sugar and milk, and then it has a different effect.
I was thinking the exact same thing, right? You go to Starbucks, you get one of those lattes. It is packed with sugar. Like that's probably what's killing you over the coffee is the amount of sugar and maltodextrin, all that like fake stuff. So I was thinking the exact same thing, like because it sounds like Andy, you drink it pretty pure, and maybe that could be a little secret. If like are you going to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts and getting that coffee 8 creams, 8 sugars? Like that's probably not so good for you versus just a regular coffee. I have one more thought.
A couple of nerdy things on the takeaway coffee, if you want to just throw a couple of things in. So if you get a takeout coffee, the best thing you can do is not have the plastic lid. Because it's not BPA-free plastic. It's the cheap rubbish plastic. The lids that at Starbucks, Costa, whatever these brands are. The coffee warms up that lid. And it starts to kick out the microplastics, you know what I mean? So you really want to. I got a takeaway coffee today, and it had a paper lid, which is better. But yeah, those cheap plastic lids, you're better off to take your own travel mug, BPA free, and put it in there. I think you save some money as well, help the environment. But yeah, taking those plastic lids are not good for you. If you can avoid them.
And they even do plastic cups. Like I got a chamomile tea the other day at Starbucks, and the cup itself was plastic, and it's like they put hot tea in it, like all that plastic is going to melt into it. Gosh, man. There's one statistic I was thinking of, and I know too, like I've heard that coffee can actually age you, so that was something for me that made me want to quit. It was a fear, like because you think about it, it speeds up your whole nervous system, right? So naturally it's going to speed up your everything else. So I have friends from high school that have been drinking coffee, throughout all of college, and they look like they're like 40 right now, and they're like they just turned 30. And so I'm like, oh my God, that was
dehydrating, massively dehydrating.
100%.
So besides speeding up the nervous system, it creates a lot of dehydration. So a good hack for that would be to take something like diatomaceous earth, which helps to really absorb actual water and the minerals from the water that you're drinking. But one of the that's one of the most nasty side effects of the caffeine is that it dehydrates the skin. I mean, literally in 9 months, I've noticed the difference in my skin just from not drinking coffee.
Dude, right?
Yeah.
You look younger.
And then I know. I look at my
not that I've known you. Not that I've known you 9 months ago, but
I looked old. I looked much older.
Now, too, like what I wonder, like the reason I brought that up is because I wonder, if that statistic came from people that were drinking 6 cups a day, that were going to Starbucks and drinking it with sugar and all the junk, right? Like maybe that's not so prevalent. I don't know the answer. Maybe it's not so prevalent if, you are doing it in a healthy way. So I think that's something to consider too, that, I always say fear is a great motivator to quit a bad habit. So, if that scares the shit out of you, hey, run with it. So that's what I did. I'm like, okay, I want to live a long time. That's like I'm addicted to living. So watch I get like hit by a Starbucks truck or something.
I wanted to just add there to what you were saying, Joel, earlier about the negative side effects and the aging. If you are naturally, Andy, you were saying that you don't really struggle with anxiety, and Joel and I did recently a whole talk, an amazing talk. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out, about anxiety. And if you have a dysregulated nervous system, or if you struggle with nervous system conditions, coffee is not your friend, because it has a massive, it literally fires the nerves. The whole nervous system becomes more stimulated, more responsive, more activated. So what I didn't realize is I thought I was quite a chill person before. And being on the coffee, I just thought that was my normal state of being. I just thought that was quite normal to feel this kind of undercurrent of anxiety, like a permanent state of anxiety. And only about 2-3 weeks of not having the coffee, I was like, this is chill. Oh my God, like what have I been doing for years and years and years? Because my nervous system was so tight, so tense. So that's definitely something I think, every person is so unique and there isn't a one size fits all methodology. That's why the data is so different, right? Because it's done on different people with different body types, and with different conditions. So it really is about getting to know your body and really getting honest about the symptoms, the feelings, and becoming more body aware, which I think a lot of us just live up here and we're not really connected to, hey, I've had this tummy ache, or I've got this dull throbbing headache that I just feel is normal. It's important to check in with that,
Well, what are some tips, Tristan, then, if somebody is wanting to go into their body more? But what I see a lot is people are afraid to do that because maybe there's been trauma. And it's like, oh shit, I haven't looked freaking in here for like 20 years. How would you like ease someone into starting to do that?
Well, a good place to start would be coming off the coffee, because have you ever tried to meditate after a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like even just sitting still with yourself and breathing it's a lot harder to do when you have coffee in your system. So again, one of the first places to start there is recognizing, hey, this is my body, having a bit more of a body awareness. So I like to start sort of with a very simple body scan where you just bring your awareness into your toes, you kind of wiggle your toes, you move your awareness up through the body, and you'll notice the mind keeps wandering off like a little choo-choo train going in different directions. And you just gently guide it back into the body. So it's just a way of starting to familiarize yourself. Hey, I'm not just like a head walking around, forcing this thing, my appendages, to do what I wanted to do. I'm actually a whole living organism, and every part of my body is working together, working for me. So that's a nice little way to kind of get in there, but it is really, really hard to even start to do any type of body work with a lot of caffeine, and especially a very heightened nervous system. So we would start with just nervous system regulation techniques, weaning off the stimulants, and then starting to go a little bit deeper and being able to address those traumas and those things that make it scary to be in your body in a really safe and beautiful way.
Slow and steady. Like I like how you said, hey, don't just look at the trauma. Like step one, it's learning slowly going into that. And I really like that message. And that's what I coach people to for quitting addiction, is to go slow and steady. Take your time. If you're ready to quit cold turkey, absolutely go for it. However, if you need a little bit more of a gentle easing into, like, that's totally fine. And you can do that as well. So once again, guys, if you are interested in trying to quit caffeine, sugar, any of these, addictive substances, marijuana especially, hit me up down below for a consult, and we can help you start on that path and get you some accountability, because that's really what I see is lacking for a lot of folks. It's just that accountability, someone to check in with on a daily basis to get that stuff out of the head and then into physical reality. So a great transition then, Tristan, is how to actually stop quitting caffeine. Like, let's go to that route, right? Like, what would you say are some ways that people can start doing that? And
first place would be starting to get really honest. I was in denial for a long time. I was like, I'm not addicted. I feel great. Coffee's great. Coffee's great. Coffee's great. And I really had to take stock. And I think if you're having intensive anxiety, jitteriness, headaches, stomach issues, any intensive side effects, to be able to just start to get a little bit honest about what you're putting into the body, into the mind even, and start to get honest with yourself, because it's hard to, which one of those things to take out. What is it? What's causing this? So really the first starting point is my go-to answer is self-awareness, is cultivating the ability to ask yourself that difficult question, to be like, hey, is caffeine giving me heart palpitations and making me feel really anxious? I denied it for like a while. And then when I was able to get honest with myself and be like, yeah, it is having a negative effect. Like you were able to do there as Joel as well, is going like, hey, this is not actually working for me, because I can't have a little, I end up having a lot. You had to have that self-awareness to recognize, maybe it's not my friend, maybe it's actually doing more harm than good. So that's really would be my go-to. It's just that starting point of getting lovingly honest with yourself and then taking it step by step from there.
Andy, now when I hear you say that, Tristan, I think, okay, that sounds pretty like almost like you're breaking up with a girlfriend or relationship or boyfriend or whatever, right? You have to be honest about the nature of the relationship. So, yeah. Andy, have you had any breakups that, mirror what Tristan said and learning how to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to pick up on a couple of points, really. I mean, that was so interesting. So removing all these addictions, it could be coffee, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, and getting a clearer mind is absolutely one of the fundamental things that you can do. Just to be, I don't know if the correct term, Tristan, is mindfulness, but I do meditation one-to-one with a coach sort of twice a week. And if I've had a coffee beforehand, I just cannot concentrate, especially when you slow down, you do the breathing. I can feel my heart going bum, 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 bum. So, my approach to it, it's a tool. But yes, you want to have a clear head. So when you're becoming more mindful, I think it's also takes time and practice. To me, it's like a self-worth journey. You need all these stimulants to cover up the fact that you're frightened of your own self inside. And this is, you talk about breakups, Joel. Yeah, 100%. You come out of a breakup a shell of a person of who you was, and you've got to get back in touch with yourself and all those things and go on this kind of self-worth journey. I know it doesn't sound very masculine, but you've got to do it. And
yeah,
one of the ways
I love
to do that is to shed yourself of all these things. I one of the things I've done over the last sort of 6 to 12 months is really cut down alcohol as well. So to the point where I just have maybe 1 or 2 drinks a month now. But I don't have to completely quit because I've got that control. But I realized that I used to use alcohol as a tool to cover up, let's call it, insecurities. When you go out and you want to have some fun, it's almost like you can't have fun without it. Now I can, because you do that inner work. I think it's, sounds like the same with coffee. I don't have an addictive personality, so it doesn't affect me, but I use it as a tool. So I use it first thing to help me train, maybe. But before meditation, absolutely not. I don't think it works there. I don't know if I answered your question there, Joel, about breakups. But...
Oh, no, that was great. Yeah. It's kind of that idea that there's going to be a period of new integration where you find out who you are again. And that's just kind of the ebb and flow of life, right? Like there's always going to be changes, and it's, everything you both have said is kind of, they gel together. Like you have to have both, I think, or you don't have to, but it helps to have both. And I think honesty, right? That's step number one in any, change in life. You got to be really honest. Like, okay, finances. Okay, am I spending too much money here? Alcohol, am I drinking too much? What would my life look like if I did quit? And so I really like, the first step is to, one, be honest, and then start to go into your body and really kind of take inventory of how it feels to actually use this substance and be aware of it. That's what I started to do. And I found that when I was drinking coffee, I couldn't really talk to people because I just had so much damn anxiety. And already being a pretty anxious person, it was just like to the max. Like when I was by myself, it was enjoyable because I could just be manic and go golf and just run through the golf course and, go to the gym and just crank out. But as soon as I got into a relationship with another person, that's when I found that it was kind of becoming a detriment because I couldn't be present. Like you said, Andy, with the meditation. So I think what I've started to do was I went slow and steady, like I said before. So I just started to take one day off. Like, okay, Joel, you don't got to quit today, but you're going to take 1 day of not using caffeine, and then you can go and enjoy tomorrow. And I did that over and over. And what I found was that the days I would use again, I was like, I kind of felt better when I wasn't using. Interesting.
Yes.
Bummer, because I was like really looking forward to drinking the caffeine or having a chocolate or whatever. But I actually did feel better without. And so the next day, okay, I can commit again. And then once that got too easy, I said, okay, I'm going to go 2 days without using caffeine. And 1 day, and then I'm going to give myself permission a day to use. And I found the same cycle. Like the 2 days were way more enjoyable than the day I would use. And then what started to happen was the day I would use, I found that it was actually hurting my performance. Like, I'm like, wow, I had 3 great days of no caffeine and I was just getting stuff done. I was happy. I was, talking to people, social. And then on this day I used, all that went away. I was back into my head. I was like, I want to isolate. And that was really when I'm like, okay, maybe it is time to really let this go for good. So I got to the point where I was on 5 days without, 1 day on. And I did that for like 3 weeks in a row. And I was like, damn, like I can go 5 days. And I can't remember the catalyst exactly, but I was sitting at a park and I just remember I was just binging on these dark chocolate bars and I was just feeling so bad. I was just like, it was just because it jacked up my dopamine, and my dopamine was already naturally at a base level. So that dopamine spike didn't feel good anymore. It felt like manic. It felt that like not clean feeling. So I was just like, dude, all right, you know what? I'm going to commit. I'm going to try to not ever touch it again. And at some point you have to go cold turkey for quitting an addiction. Like if you do actually quit, 1 day you have to say, okay, I'm done for good. And that day came, and it's been almost 3 years, 2.5 years over now. I lose track, but it's life's a lot cleaner. Like you said, Tristan, a lot less anxiety. And when the anxiety does come up, I can manage it. And I know that the root of it isn't the caffeine. So that was a big part as well. Like now I can actually say, okay, maybe this is something from the past, like a trauma that I have to address, because it can't be the caffeine anymore because I'm not drinking caffeine. So really it can be sobriety can be a tool to help you with other addictions and other issues as well, because they're like weeds, right? You pull a weed, another weed's going to pop up, and you already pulled that weed. So therefore the only thing that weed is that weed or addiction, pun intended. So I really recommend doing it for that purpose, to be able to heal other issues as well. And all good, Andy. And then, so what has your life been like, Tristan, without caffeine? Or well, you have cacao, but without coffee. How's that journey been last 9 months?
I feel smoother. Definitely, everything feels less intense. I think with the coffee, I felt constantly on edge. I didn't even realize that I felt like I was on peak, like I was just like, ta, ta, ta. And it wasn't. I was actually very reactive. I noticed that especially with my kids, that my patience, my temper was a lot more. Once that coffee buzz had worn off, I was actually a lot more irritated and agitated. Whereas now I feel a lot more, just a bit more soft, and I can kind of catch if there is a reaction. Like you said, I can understand, hey, what else is going on here? Am I feeling stressed about something else? It's become a bit more of an inquiry tool as to what else is going on. Definitely feel calmer, and able to respond. So that difference between being reactive, which is like I can't catch it, it just comes out, versus really taking responsibility, cultivating that sense of ability to respond to the world and the chaos that happens, because it does. The curveballs, all of those things, I feel able to pause and respond. Whereas before was like solve mode, fix it mode all the time. And you kind of, I don't know, I getting really honest with myself, I feel like that fix it mode, that hyper, like you say, almost manic mode, causes a lot of problems. Causes a lot of, it's like we're trying to dissect and take things apart that don't need fixing. So I definitely noticed that ability just to pause. I've been able to meditate, whereas before I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't And again, it's been a long journey of self-development and learning to sit with myself, because a lot of the root cause that I was masking was from really intensive trauma. But the coffee kind of just kept me avoidant. And when I took that away, really being able to sit with myself in a completely new way, in a really loving, compassionate, nourishing way. Whereas before it was like, okay, Tristan, like we got to get in here, do some self-development, scratch around, see what we got to fix. And that's one way to do it. But I'm definitely much more, I'm enjoying this process a lot more of self-inquiry with compassion and love, and a loving honesty versus that fix it caffeine mode.
Sounds like you went from masculine to feminine.
I think balance of both, because I still feel like now, when I'm being productive, and as I said, I feel like I am far more productive than I was, but I'm honoring that cyclical nature. I'm honoring, like in the past, I would feel guilty about taking an afternoon nap, but I would feel that crash. I literally wouldn't want to make dinner for my kids. I'd feel completely depleted, but then feel so much guilt and shame of like, why am I not, on? Whereas now I can feel that message way beforehand. So I'm not becoming depleted. I'm able to listen and be like, hey, my body needs to lie down for 10 minutes. And then honoring that. And then I get up feeling so much more alive, so much more energetic. And it's, I don't know, tapping into more of my natural life force energy. Whereas I was very much, when I got super honest with myself, I felt like the caffeine was robbing my life force energy. It was taking and not giving as much back. Whereas definitely with the cacao, I feel there is this nourishment. I'm mineralizing the body. I'm adding to it. This is like trying to put diesel into a petrol engine, which is what the caffeine felt like. My body wasn't computing with it. It wasn't doing well with it. And I kept thinking that was the thing that was going to get me from point A to point B. So, I think more of a balance between the masculine of going action orientation, but at a different pace, in that feminine, trusting, surrendered action.
Instead of that heady, hedonistic action. Yeah. And I can tell too, like you said the word feel a lot. So it sounds like you're feeling is a very feminine thing to do. And versus like, oh, I think I should do this. I think I should do this. Like, I feel like I want to do this. And so I do it. And I imagine your kids are much like, dude, mom's cool again.
Mom's cool again. Definitely. Like my daughter would know, like she'd be like, oh, mom's crashing. Let's everyone just like move away and
buckle up. Mom's crashing.
It is intense, having kids. They're like little real truth mirrors. It's like no BS. They tell you exactly how it is. And especially my very precocious 7-year-old, she just hits the nail on the head. She's like, Mom, you're being a little bit angry right now. I think you need a timeout. Like, just take a breath. Like, go outside and take a breath. And I'm like, you're so right. It's wonderful to be able to work with that, not against it.
Nice. Oh man, I know. Yeah, that would have been, I'll just say, family member for me. I drink a lot of caffeine, and I just remember, certain, like, there was a rhythm to the mood, and like it sucked. Like we picked up on it, and it's like, all right, here we go, guys. Like, probably go to your room for a couple hours, and it's like, well, as kids, you just want to connect with your parents and learn how to have that social connection and stuff. And so that's I mean, to be honest, that's part of my trauma, and that's why I was so dedicated to quit these substances, because I wanted to learn how to have relationships with people. And it's been a hell of a journey. And it's like, like I'll go some moments, it seems like I'm like 8 again, and then I'll be back to 26, 29, and then I'll be back 22, and it's just I'm kind of bouncing around ages. But I know that's like basically my consciousness kind of like leveling out, and eventually I'll be my age, hopefully.
Stay young. No, I love this.
Stay young.
That's what keeps us young.
Cool. So Andy, I actually want to ask you, so I know you're still, you're drinking caffeine in a healthy manner. which is really, it's inspiring to hear that you can have moderation with stuff. It's opened my eyes, because I was always like, hey, you're either sober, you're not sober. And if you're not sober, you're a heathen. That's like, no, people can handle it. How is, you've been off alcohol, or at least reduced alcohol a lot. What has that been like for you? Since this is an addiction channel, I'm curious.
Amazing. I mean, so where I come from in the north of England, there's a culture here. People like to drink. You go out, and I've got friends who I've known pretty much all my life, and if you go out with them, everyone's getting drunk, and it's almost like the scene, that you need to be a part of. And last time I had a night out with, I don't do it that often, but last time I had a night out with friends, I was swapping to water, and you get some funny looks. People look at you funny, but I feel great. So maybe I have a couple of drinks, and that's it. I'll switch to water. I think the most this year, the most I've ever had in one evening is about 4 drinks, and that's on a long night. And that's just 4 singles, spirits. But yeah, I can have one and I'm done, and I'll do that once a month, maybe. Very, very, yeah. So I've got great control, and I was going to play one back to you there, Joel, because on yourself, Tristan, because it sounds like you both probably had an issue in terms of addiction with certain substances. I've got the opposite. I can really control it. So if I have 2-3 cups a day max, usually 2. One thing I'm going to do now is try and do alternate days. I think I'm going to go for that now after speaking to you two. I'm going to go for it. I've got even more control, and I can have a day where I go, right, no coffee, and I can do it. But, how, one thing you talked about a family member. When my brother comes to stay at my house, he drinks coffee at 1 a.m. in the morning,
My mom.
Wow.
It's crazy. And he always says, do you want a coffee? I'm like, no. I'm going to bed. I'm already been, going to bed, and he's offering me a coffee. And he drinks, when he comes, I have this expensive, he drinks about 15 quid's worth of coffee a week. It costs me a fortune when he stays at my house. Well, that's 15 English, 15 pounds sterling a week, which is quite a lot of coffee beans. And he drinks it all night and all day. And then he ends up sleeping in till 1 p.m., in the afternoon,
Right.
doesn't get up. Just terrible lifestyle habits. I don't want to, say too much about him. He's funny, but he's totally
Give him that.
But I was going to play it back to you. If you have, let's say, an issue with certain addictive personality with substances, what's the solution to that? Is it abstaining completely, or is there a way where you can convert yourself into a person that could have a coffee once a week or twice a week? Does it have to be all or nothing, or is there a fix, Tristan? In terms of your inner self, where you can be completely at ease, where you can have a coffee and it won't. It's not like you have one drink and that's it. You're going on a full weekend bender, and you're going to be smashed out of your face for 3 days because you've had one drink. Or can you actually have one drink and stop? Can you have one coffee and stop for the rest of the week? Is that possible?
Do you want to go first, Joel?
Sure. Yeah, I think it is for certain people, and it kind of goes back to what Tristan was saying. Like, you have to learn who you are as a person, and so I think at first you have to go, all or nothing. And they say that like in recovery, right? Like you people that come in, they like once they have that first drink, like some people will be 15 years sober and they'll have a glass of whiskey and then they'll kill themselves because it's just like it's like 0 to 60. Now, yes. I'll say for me, I was off sugar for over 3 years, and a few weeks ago I had sugar for the first time. And it tastes good and stuff. I found though that I had it on the weekend and I've been off it, the last 3 days, and I'm not thinking about it. I'm not really worried about it. So in that sense, I think, with some of these substances like caffeine, maybe food, that it may be possible to do that. I think with those more dangerous substances, I would be, if someone's listening to this, I'd be wary. Like if you're smoking weed all the time, probably stay off that. Alcohol, if you're obviously like heroin or cocaine or shit like that. But when it comes to like the food stuff, like if someone were to ask me honestly, I would say experiment for yourself, try it out, see if you can, go, use it sparingly, and then go back to your discipline and self-control and all that. And if you find you can't, then go back and really work on quitting it for good. But give yourself at least probably like 30 to 60 days, at least. I would say 60 days at least, to know that you can live without it, because I think that's something too. It's like once you realize I can live without it, it becomes a choice then if you have it, versus that compulsion, like, oh, I need to have it. It's like, that's what I feel like with sugar. It's like, I don't need to have it. I'm choosing to have it. And because of that, it feels like I do feel like I'm in control of it. Now I can't control the ups and downs and the crashes. So that's where it's like, okay, the consequences are going to be there, whether I am choosing to do this or not. So then it becomes another choice of, do I want these consequences in my life? The answer is yes, and I'll continue, having sweets once and again, now and again, or same with caffeine. If I want to have that anxiety or whatever, then, and I'm okay with that, then I'm going to continue to have caffeine and stuff. But if I don't, and I really want to choose to not have it, then I might have to let the caffeine go.
So that's such a great answer. Yeah, I mean, my whole sort of life's work is finding that sweet spot, that alignment, where any extreme I find is slightly problematic. Anytime we stay in an extreme, we're fighting, we're creating an internal conflict. So, as Joel's saying, there definitely has to be that process of disidentifying with it, or removing our identity around it. If we identify as a coffee drinker or a smoker or an addict, there's a strong hold. So now we tend to pendulum swing. That's how we find alignment, as we go from one extreme to another. But for me, the ultimate place to get back to is that sweet spot. And it's not, I think that we spoke about this in our last podcast. Alignment isn't like balance, where it's this zen point that we get to and everything's peachy. It's about recognizing, if I'm on a slack line, I recognize I'm teetering a little bit to the left. Hey, I'm indulging in this, or I'm distracting myself with this, and then having the tools to be able to bring yourself back. For me, is my passion. That is literally all. My whole work is centered around that. So I do absolutely believe that, yeah, that's the space to get to. Like, I grew up with an alcoholic mom, and for me, I went through binge drinking and then completely anti-drinking, and now I feel more in that place of choice that Joel was talking about. Is like, I don't feel good when I drink. I don't. Like, my body doesn't feel good. My skin breaks out. Like, I don't. So I'll have maybe, a gin and tonic when we're out. I'll water it down halfway through. But I've just learned that my body doesn't feel good with it. And so I can have it, and I won't. I definitely don't feel like I'd overindulge in anything. But some substances are slightly harder. And I think it's about knowing the association behind the comfort. For example, with smoking, was really hard to stop because I'd connected it to breathing. I'd literally connected my smoking to taking. I was allowed to breathe. When I was smoking a cigarette, I was allowed to breathe. Whereas, when I wasn't smoking, it felt like I didn't deserve to take in oxygen. And so when you get to the root cause of the addiction, and I think that a lot of times we just treat symptomatically, we're just treating, oh, you have this addiction, we got to get you off of it, versus what is the association? What is the comfort? What is the connection? People that I had a lot of eating disorders, and a lot of it was this comfort of like being held by my granny, or baking cookies with my granny. Beautiful association, really hard to shake. So now we're coming in with guilt and shame, saying, cookies are bad, but it has this really beautiful association. So it's about disentangling and taking back the power that we've unconsciously, subconsciously handed those permission slips to these substances, and recognize, hey, I'm allowed to feel this feeling of comfort, love, being allowed to breathe without it being linked to these external substances. So Yeah.
You would make a great addiction coach. that was really nice. I was like, damn, very good. I like it. Yeah, finding the root of the addiction, like that
There's
hit.
always a root. There's always a root. Always.
Always
It's
the root.
not
And
the substance.
for myself, I've wondered too if I become addicted to like quitting stuff. And we joke about it. Like my roommate Jaron and I, who's been on this channel, he's like, I think you're addicted to not being addicted. And there is I think there is something to that. And after hearing you say that, just the fact that maybe like quitting the stuff, I did the systematic approach. Now I have gone in and done a lot of healing, but I think that's a really important point that like you can't just quit. You have to find out why you were doing it in the first place. And once you resolve that, then you really get that choice into, okay, do I want to continue using the substance? Because now I see why I was using it versus like, oh, I have to use this to survive or else I'm going to like explode. So yeah, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Do you not think everything's, I'm just picking up there, everything's a dopamine fix, isn't it? It's just a big distraction. And
bro,
all these things that we're talking about, they're all distractions, and from whatever, you know, whether it's an addiction to a substance, you know, or it could be anything, you know, even like we talked about last week, Joel, talking about consuming too much content.
Yeah,
these are all distractions from life, addictions. And why do we have those dopamine fixes? Why can't we just, because everything's about short-term goals, and you know the go-to substances are covering things up short-term. Why can't we just make ourselves goal-oriented, delayed gratification, and just have the discipline to do the right thing, and not to drink, not to smoke, you know, be healthier. Cut out coffee if you can't handle it. Cut it completely out, and just be healthier, because everyone's chasing the short-term fix, you know, or they're frightened of themselves. It's a cover-up. They've got some kind of trauma, insecurity. They can't just be brutally honest with themselves.
It's painful. It's really painful to be honest, and I think that's why people avoid it and chase. You know, a little reframe that I wanted to on your point, Andy, that's been such a game changer for me is we kind of get the societal formula of so I'll do X and then I'll be able to have this. So if I do the exercise, I'll have the hot body and then I can be loved, right? So the formula is this idea that we do, then we have, and then we can be, you know, putting that goal at the end versus shifting that up and recognizing the more we cultivate the being, what do we want to feel? So if, for example, that coffee gives me a sense of control, it gives me a sense of onness, it gives me a sense of productive, let me cultivate that feeling. What does it feel like to feel productive? What does it feel like to feel on? And start to prime our bodies to be. And then our action, our doing comes from being, right? It's a product of. So if the focal point is on what do I want to be, what am I wanting to feel, what am I priming my body to feel, motivation, action naturally, more easily will be able to come from that. And then the having is inevitable. But it's this, I feel like this fixation on the external, on the goals, that external thing that we're always chasing, it kind of keeps that addictive nature. It's like this hunger, this unquenched thirst that we're always seeking to fulfill versus what does it actually feel like? What does it feel like? Like, take a minute, right? What's the feeling that you feel like, for example, in your business or in your life, the one thing that you really feel like you're chasing or you really desire? What is that feeling? What do you think you'll feel when you have it?
I think it's peace and acceptance, and like high levels of neurochemicals, and the forgetting, and this is the forgetting that it all is going to end, that death is coming. And I know that's for me. Like sometimes even I can get addicted to love because I want to forget that one day that like everything and every person I love is going to be gone, and I have no idea where I'm going to end up. Maybe, you know, if I come back as, whether we come back or reincarnate or heavens exist, I have no idea. I don't spend time trying to figure it out, because it's just, to me, it's a waste of this life. So when that moment comes, it's going to be like, so part of that too is the pain that this moment is only temporary, even if it can feel so good. And that's that freaks me out sometimes. And I think that's why I know I've chosen to escape, or, even dating can be an addiction. There can be so many, it's like Andy said, just escapes from life. Now, there has to be a positive to what I just said, because that was pretty dark. So maybe just acceptance.
I think. Sorry, Tristan, you carry on.
Go for it. No, I was just going to ask Joel, how would he know what does acceptance feel like? How do you know when you've achieved that acceptance? What would it feel like?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what it is, it's an absence of the negative emotions. That's what it is.
Interesting. But think of this for a minute. Think of this. We live in a paradoxical universe. Okay. We live in dualism, night, day, dark, light. And we were talking earlier about this marriage of the masculine and feminine. When we stop, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, which inevitably has the opposite effect, right? Is like, the more I want the pleasure, the more pain it causes. When we recognize that it's both, and we accept that it's both, then it's not an absence of, it's an integration of, right?
Very true.
Go ahead, Andy.
Picking up on a couple of things. I think it's interesting how this chat about coffee is delving into some real
deep
psychology now, but it's a fabric, because it is related, and everything's about an identity. It's like what Tristan was getting into was pretty much the basis of manifestation, which is you manifest who you are. It's not what you want. You manifest what you are, and that's about an identity. So couple of things that was going through my head. Firstly, on the body, let's put a caveat on this. If you train your body and you get in great shape and you put discipline, you will attract more people. End of. Right? But you are correct on the, you're almost doing it for that purpose, which is the wrong way around. The best way to do anything is to create an identity for yourself and live out that identity honestly. Because that is manifestation. You can create an identity of success in any endeavor and just live honestly to that. You don't have to say, when I get to this goal, I will be successful, because your goal should never be achievable. It should always be on the horizon. You should always keep moving the goalposts. It's just a destination. So yeah, it's about creating an identity. That's the way I see it.
So
on the body, if you get big muscles like me,
my little baby muscles.
Feel better.
My jiu-jitsu muscles are coming.
I ain't got big muscles, but yeah. Joel,
don't lie to us, Andy. I've seen your Instagram. Check out Andy's Instagram.
Big muscles.
That's spot on, man. That identity thing.
Yeah.
And I woke up this morning, actually. I've been having a lot of anxiety the last couple of weeks because I started eating sugar again. And I woke up and I don't know, it's been like 5 a.m. and I was just it finally hit me. So it's really, pertinent that you bring this up now. The anxiety has come not from the fact that I ate sugar. It's the fact that I had this identity around someone who doesn't eat sugar. And I was like going to ride and die with it. It gave me a sense of who I was. It gave me confidence. And that that story doesn't exist anymore. It can exist again, but and a part of me felt almost betrayed because I'd spent so much time working on it and I was so proud of it. And I in a split second, I decided to change that. And I guess, I feel a bit of sadness and grief. What came up to as I was laying in bed was like 5 stages of grief. That's what's going, and I was denying it up until this point. This morning, I was in denial. Like, no,
don't beat yourself up, Joel. Don't. The trick here,
acceptance.
Can you slip back into it? Because it's 80% good is fine. You know what I mean? You're allowed the odd slip up. Don't beat yourself up. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Can you train yourself to have a little bit every now and again? Even like, what did you do? Have a bag of Haribos or something? I don't know, but
Haribos.
In Mexico, they don't have the German stuff.
Again, it's fine.
some
If you're 80-90% tight on your diet, that's good enough. It's like everything in psychology. There's this term, good enough parenting, good enough this, good enough that.
Right. Oh, thank you,
Be
Andy.
good enough. You don't have to be 100%, and don't punish yourself. Just slip right back into good routine, and that's that.
I appreciate that, man, and that's the answer for sure. It's like, don't beat yourself up. I think though I will say, I think part of the process is allowing myself to be disappointed with myself, so I can like work through that emotion. So there's the denial. There's going to be the grief, which I think I've starting to play out, which is the sadness. So it's denial, grief, bargaining. So I was doing some bargaining, like, hey, like, it's okay because you're doing it for the gym, which as is the truth. Like, it's okay, I'm doing it for the gym, and bargaining, denial. And then there's rage, so which I haven't hit yet. So
you wanna let's get in. Let's get it out.
Andy, you son of a by just blaming other people. No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. But there's the anger, and then after all that resolves, then there's the acceptance, and it's like, okay, I did it. Life isn't going to end. No. People still love me. I still love myself. I still love others. I'm still able to show up. I still have good friends like you guys here, and life's going to go on. And it's and maybe this all just happened right now. So
we've like rapidly spread through the stages of grief.
Yeah, let's go.
I want to just highlight something to you there, Joel. For you, that acceptance, if you look at the grief cycle, acceptance is being able to move through all of those. It's not the absence of the bad stuff. It's the integration, right? It's like you're honoring that every time we change. And to Andy's point about the identity is, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, because it's something that I find really fascinating, is the more flexible and dexterous we become with our identity, the easier it is to adapt. Because like you're experiencing now is, and I've done this so many times, like I'm in self-development and I have a bad day and then I beat myself up because I'm supposed to have all, and it's like, no, you're not. Like, you're a human figuring shit out, right? And the more we can recognize what are the identity qualities that I'm wanting to cultivate and nurture, and like obviously building on those things, but also recognizing, hey, is this an ego am I holding this in place because it gives me a sense of worth and like importance in the world, or am I able to shift this a little bit? And I think that really is the ultimate place to be able to recognize that, like the phoenix, you go to sleep at night and you wake up a different person, right? And there'll be core characteristics, and this very much fits into our values. And I think I would highly recommend every person to get a piece of paper out and write down your core values, because this will be different for every person, but making sure that identity is always aligning to your value construct, but then within, giving it some wiggle room and flexibility, and going like, hey, maybe I felt this way about coffee. I was a massive advocate, a couple of months ago. Can I let that go and actually be someone? And if we have this conversation in 6 months' time, maybe I'm over cacao. Can I be okay with admitting that I'm changing and allowing that part of the ego to shift? I don't know, that for me is really such a wonderful, and something I'm definitely working on integrating more and more. Because Andy, you were talking about manifestation, and there's a whole 95% of our subconscious mind that we need to get in touch with. Those cravings, your desires, are they coming from the conscious mind when you're craving a joint or you're craving some alcohol? No, they're mostly coming from the subconscious mind. So we really want to be able to be inclusive with the parts, the shadowy parts that we kind of reject and push aside, and make that a whole identity versus this very cherry-picked identity that we then hold very rigidly to, which causes way more pain than is necessary.
Yeah, it looks good on like social media and stuff, but behind the scenes, and right, I mean, just like you said, like identify those values. And so like, I'm just gonna say, like, let's say I was coaching somebody that was going through what I was going through. I would say, okay, it sounds like discipline is a value of yours. I don't think not eating sugar is a value. It's like, or not drinking coffee. It's discipline, right? It's self-control. It's agency over your life. And so if you can focus on that versus like the exact, perfection of the behavior, then I think, yeah, like you just said, there's going to be a lot more peace and flexibility to be able to just live life a little bit. Because I will say, it is freaking nice just to be able to go to a restaurant with my friends. It's like, I don't have to be like, hey, can I just have a plain steak and broccoli, not put together? Which I've had to do many times. People are just like, and they're like, yeah, I'll have a pasta. And I'm just sitting there like eating my steak, like just staring at them. So yeah, I will.
But even in that, you have to ask yourself, is it, sometimes we do things that we think are good for us, but are actually can be punishing. We have to understand, what is the motivation? What's the reason behind what we're doing? Because if it is really and truly from self-love, we want to recognize, am I withholding this from a pun, like almost like a child, you can't have any dessert after dinner because you're a bad boy, like, are we doing it from that space, part of the subconscious mind playing that out? Or are we doing it truly because we want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the answer. It comes down to choice. Well, I will actually hold off on that piss. I'm gonna take a piss quick, and then we can wrap up. So be
Go
right
for it.
back.
Enjoy, release. Andy, what for you would you say? Like you use the word discipline a lot. Like, what does discipline mean for you? Someone that clearly puts a lot of energy into that. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'd tie it back to what you just said there, Tristan. So discipline for me is definitely the right thing to do, because it is about self-love. So like take what Joe was saying there, going to a restaurant, right? So when you go to a restaurant, ordering food, if you're into kind of diet and that, it's an art form. You've got to subtract things or order a full meal and put half of it to one side. So I always do that. I do this. I order a steak,
Broccoli on the side.
with broccoli and try to get some cruciferous veg. And if there's any potatoes or chips, I'll just leave them. Occasionally, I might have one or two. And that is out of self-love. It's like, I want to put in my body the best fuel I can, So I think there is something to that. I'm not punishing myself. It's funny because when I sort of come off sugar myself, I do have sugar occasionally, and I can have a bit of sugar and come right back. I don't have this addictive personality. So
such a good belief, by the way. I love to keep saying it. It's great.
I don't know how. I've just never been addicted to anything, so I can always do that. But when you come off sugar, you get these like a withdrawal. It's like anything, come off cigarettes. I guess I've never smoked, so I don't know. But you come off cigarettes, you'll get a withdrawal. And you almost get, when you come off the sugar, there's this term called the keto flu, if you've ever heard of it. Yeah. It's just when you feel like absolute crap for, like, let's say 2 weeks, because you're training your body to come off all those like really, really bad sugars or poor carbohydrates.
It's a different fuel completely. I mean, ketones completely different fuel. Yeah.
Yeah. But now I can cycle between without a problem. But yeah, I think coming off sugar is another one. It's great, but you have these cravings, and you've got to, it's almost like rewiring your brain. You've got to retrain your brain to get used to certain things. Same with what you were saying about the subconscious. If you have a look at trying to retrain your subconscious, it can be done.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of work,
Yeah.
Like
I found just in terms of some tips and tricks. One of the fastest ways I found to kind of reset the craving is doing a water fast. I just recently, about 2 weeks ago, did my first. I've done lots of other fasts, different types of fast, and the just water fast was amazing. Like, I came out of it without sugar craving. So I just did 3 days. I did 3 days, and then I came off onto. I did a 12-hour dry fast. I did 3 days water and then 12 days dry fast, and it was just such a phenomenal experience, because all the other fasts that I've done, you still have the juice and you're still filling yourself in some way, but to sit with yourself just with water and see what's going on in the body, like I almost feel like that's a bit of a cheat code for people, like if you really are wanting to check the addiction and like get that discipline, get that self-control, and just prove. For me, it was more like to prove to myself that I can, like that I actually do have really good self-control. We need to have evidence for that, because otherwise we just keep repeating. Like Andy's master of going, I don't have an addictive personality. Like I just don't, right? But a lot of people, they've had addiction. So you've created this identity around being an addictive person, and you keep finding more evidence. So you'll break, your commitment to yourself, and you'll order the cheese sauce on the steak versus just the steak. And so I feel like the more evidence we give ourselves for the other identity that we're trying to reinforce, the easier it becomes, because now I have information to draw from. Hey, I did this 3-day water fast and I was able to do that. Now, next time I'm dealing with something, I draw from that, draw from that evidence toolbox. Hey, Joel, how would you feel? You feel lighter, brighter, emptier? Yeah.
Dude, talk about anxiety relieving. Holy shit.
Pressing on the bladder. I know.
Yeah.
I had babies sitting on my bladder. That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankful I don't have to ever deal with that. Yeah. But thank you. Yeah. Sounds like you guys are talking about sugar a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, dude. That keto flu is, it is rough. And let's just say there's keto treats out there. So get addicted to those. There's this at Whole Foods, you get this keto white chocolate bar. So there's no cacao. It's made with cashews. And I've probably spent a couple grand on them because I would just get one every day. So there's options if you're quitting sugar to still get your little sweet fix. Because I think that's what I noticed too. I just like sweets. Like it's not really, doesn't even have to be sugar or whatever. I just like that sweet flavor.
What's a nice thing, Joe? I've got a keto chocolate fat bombs on there with cacao. I make them with cacao, 100%. Yeah, but they're beautiful. They're like Belgian chocolates with zero sugar.
Sounds amazing. Dude, if I'm relapsing on cacao, it's going to be on those. Yeah, that's freaking amazing.
The thing is, though, the amount of calories when you've got to watch it too. You go keto and you go high fat, you've got to watch your calories. It's very easy to overconsume.
So I think anything processed, one needs to be mindful of. Anything that is refined and processed, that it's tricky, as opposed to something in its whole form, like eating it. If you're wanting something sweet, I found like having watermelon is my like go-to, and I'm really wanting something super sweet. Watermelon's great because I'm getting the hydration in, I get a little bit of the sweetness. But yeah, generally
we find that with meat, like you don't crave meat, and when you eat it, it tastes really good, but then you get full and you like don't want to eat it again. You don't just like binge on steak or like beef. You eat and then you're full as fuck, and then you're just like, okay, I'm good.
Hey, watermelon, quick one with more watermelon. Watermelon, feta, pesto, balsamic vinegar.
Mint.
Give that a go.
With a little bit of mint. I know that's one of my favorite salads. Cut up little bits of mint with yes. Yeah. Like perfection right there. That is a tip and trick for sure. Yeah.
Do you know what makes it perfect? Have it with a cold coffee as well. Just a cold
Andy, naughty boy.
A little devil on the shoulder here. I want these, like these two little guys to be friends, the little devil and the little angel, to just like be buddies. So you're not so easily swayed and influenced. Yeah.
No.
This is a juicy topic. Yeah, I think just to sort of sum up there around becoming more aware of, I had a few people message me after your post went out, like on my story, and a few people be like, what do you mean say no to Joe? Like that will never happen, and it's interesting how strongly people feel about it. And I often challenge like people to, the more strongly and like things that you really advocate for and feel like 100% about, there's often something else there, and to get a little bit curious around. So like if this is the only way, like, okay, but what's driving that? What's behind that? And just to get a little curious and ask yourself the more difficult questions of how does it feel in my body? How does it feel when I take it? How would I feel if I didn't? Like Andy's taken the challenge now to delay by a day. Let's start a hashtag delay by a day challenge.
That's such a good, like, why am I being triggered by somebody else's behavior?
Why do I
sounds
feel
good.
so strongly? Why do I feel so strongly about this?
And
Well,
that sounds
I
like
think so, functionally. I mean, I always eat functionally, so I look at the health benefits of everything. You know, if laying off coffee is good for a day or two, I'll do it. You know, but I wouldn't. It won't be some kind of dogma where I'd say, "That's it, I'm quitting coffee," just because of a belief that I don't need to have coffee. It's not like that for me. You know, I eat functionally, and if it works for me, I'll use it as a tool.
yeah. We just
And
see
that's something we
posts
have to.
all over your. Andy's like, 2 days off coffee. Let's go, guys.
Yeah.
Join my community. And
Okay.
what were we talking? We were talking about. Yeah, I think, getting that triggered of other people's, that's codependency right there. So, I see that, like, I don't watch the news. I haven't in like probably 7 years, because it's just so, like, everyone gets so angry over other people's decisions, and it's like, dude, that's just exhausting. Like why don't you just live your life? And here I am telling people that watch the news that they shouldn't watch the news. So it's just, I'm doing it too. So it's like, I just, it is a good reminder, like, okay, stay. And why I got triggered in that moment was because my parents did it, and I wish my parents would have hung out with us instead of watching news so much. And it's like, so that's where the trigger comes from. It's not the news's fault. It's just the memory of childhood. So I think
that's honesty. That's what it means. You've literally demonstrated what it means to start to get curious and honest about what's behind that. Why do you feel so strongly about something? Oh, because this, like, I was for a long time super, like, very vegetarian, very strong activist. And yeah, where did that come from? Those were things that were given to me. They weren't necessarily like now I don't hold that as part of my identity. Like, you do you, what feels good in you. Like, the bigger question is what feels true and what feels good in your body. And if you can clearly and strongly answer those things, that's what it comes down to. I feel what works for somebody doesn't work for somebody else. And so I think it's quite confusing. There's so many different messages about what's good and what's bad, and this diet and that diet and this thing. And it really, I feel like it just pulls people further out of themselves, and it feels quite overwhelming, versus actually what we all need to be doing is recognizing that little wayfinder within us, and that you know what's good for your body. You know what bloats you. You know what makes you feel like you're having a crash. You just need to get in here and start to explore and get honest.
And when you are honest, you feel that peace. So, I think that's a great end to this amazing conversation, guys. So, man, just fantastic. And just want to acknowledge you both for coming on and, being honest, being vulnerable. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure the audience as well. And congrats as well for both of you guys, for being 9 months off coffee and having your kids like you again.
My kids like me. Mom points.
Really good. And then Andy for being off alcohol and being willing to, like, hey, like, be honest and say, hey, maybe I do want to take a day off here and there and see what happens. So, that's powerful. And just appreciate you guys both. And shout out to Ricky as well, who wasn't able to make it, but he's on a journey to quitting cacao. So that's why, I invited him on, so unfortunately couldn't make it, but he is, guys, as well, having a coaching training. So a coaching boot camp called the Prosperous Healer. So if you want to level up your coaching business, you can reach out to him, and he can help you, accomplish that and become a better coach and attract the finances and the clients and all that stuff you want, which I know, Tristan, something you do as well. So that link will be down below. So shout out to Ricky. And then for you guys, where can people find you? What do you got going on in the internet space and stuff like that?
Go for it, Andy.
Okay, so all of my stuff on social is they're like hobbies, really. My main gig, I've got a tech business. That's how I make my living. It's pretty unique tech business. I love it. But on the side, obviously, I've got my Instagram at AndyHolt_AZL for the American audience. And I've got a YouTube channel, Tips and Tricks at Home. You go and have a look and find me out there. Most of my YouTube is like, I do a lot of cooking. There's some great coffee videos on there if you want to go. on how I take my coffee, but obviously I'm having it responsibly. So yeah, I do a lot of cooking. I'm into the sort of things that I do there is mainly things like cooking. I do a lot of book reviews, and yeah, that's where you can find me. Everything's, if you go to my Instagram, all my links from there. I've also got started a meetup channel for biohacking, so my other interests. So I do a lot on things like different diets. We talk. I've got one coming up about sugar, Joel. So real sugar versus fake sugar, which is better. I do one on supplements, all that kind of thing. So yeah, everything's from my Instagram. You got all the links there.
Awesome, man.
Thank
I'm
you.
definitely going to join that biohacking. Something I'm super
It's all
passionate
online. Yeah.
Yeah, Life Aligned Academy. I've got my Instagram. I've also got a YouTube channel, and then I've got my signature program out. I've got two. One's coming out in January, but the one that's out at the moment is Wayfinder, and it's all about learning to navigate the inner world of feeling, getting to know our different emotions, and yeah, how to reframe. We were speaking about rage earlier. How to get in touch with our emotions and work with them as little messengers. And then my signature program, the Life Aligned Legacy program, comes out in January. And that is where we get access to our 7 sacred gifts. So yeah, those links are also all in my Linktree profile on my Instagram and in my YouTube description. So yeah, looking forward to connecting with everyone. Thank you so much, Joel. I always love these chats. You are so willing to kind of self-reflect. And that for me is like, yeah, it's gold. Your ability to just kind of check in and be vulnerable. I always appreciate it so much. So thank you for having me on. And Andy, it was so great to meet you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tristan.
Oh, wait, one last thing. I'm going to drop that little recipe, the cacao recipe.
Oh, yeah.
You want to quickly type, Joel?
So yeah.
Okay.
Shoot.
Okay, so it's 1 tablespoon of cacao, but like pure, ethically sourced cacao. Like spend money on the cacao, like Andy spends cash on his good coffee.
Yeah.
You want to make sure it's good cacao. A teaspoon of turmeric.
Teaspoon.
Turmeric is a natural anti-inflammatory.
Right,
and then we've got a teaspoon of cinnamon, which helps to regulate your blood sugar levels. And then we got a crack of black pepper, which helps to activate the turmeric.
Say crack.
A crack, little crack.
Throw a
not
little
crack,
crack in there.
guys, not crack. And then a little pinch of salt. You can do Himalayan or a good quality sea salt.
Yep, sea salt.
Yeah.
Table salt.
And then a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper.
Love the stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Helps to dilate all the blood vessels, gets oxygen going. Really, it's a good like one of those really good stimulants. And then I use macadamia milk. It's an alkaline milk. I know there's a lot of controversy around almond milk, but I prefer mac milk. And then you just heat that up, give it a nice little blend, sprinkle some magic in, and set a good intention, and then boom, there's your yummy cacao. Great substitute for the coffee.
I'm giving that a go, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, macadamias cost a fortune these days. I mean,
it does, but we all I don't spend money on alcohol or any other vices, so it's the one place I love to splurge, and it's that little ritual of having something warm and cozy in your belly. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And
Tristan, I'm gonna do my plug here. So just hold on one sec there, and then people can write down this recipe if they want to dive in. So yeah, guys, definitely hit up Tristan and Andy for sure. Tristan helped me with some anxiety stuff, so it works. So I know you do coaching, right? So definitely hit her up for a session there. You can find me on Sobriety University on YouTube, which may be where this channel is this stream is being streamed from. And what I do for a living is I help people overcome their addictions, specifically to marijuana, and also to caffeine, to food, to whatever it might be, porn, all that stuff that takes us out of who we are. So if you do want to reach out for a coaching session, you can book a consult down below. $20, 45 minutes. We'll get to know you a little bit, find out where you are in your journey, and then what we can do to best help you reach your goals, because I think a lot of it is reframing. So what I found with people I coach is once they see their bigger vision for life, a lot of people enter addiction recovery just wanting to get sober. And that sometimes isn't enough, because let's be honest, getting sober can suck. So when they have like, oh, I want a family, oh, I want to have this awesome career, I want to connect with my kids again, that gives it, that starts to overpower the desire to use. And then from there it becomes a little bit more easier, because it's like, well, I could go smoke this joint, but then that takes me further away from wanting to have a great relationship with my kids, just as an example. So we will work on that with you to help you identify what that is for you and what your purpose in life is, and and to help you get there, and hopefully quit with at least the least amount of pain as possible. Because there are ways, like with biohacking, right? You can go to the gym instead of sitting on your couch waiting for the withdrawals to go away. You can take an active approach in your recovery. So once again, that's down below. Also, as we mentioned in the beginning, the Men of Now community, which Andy and I are both a part of, really invite you to join and hop in. It's at menofnow.us, and there'll be a little more info on it. Essentially, you'll get to have conversations like this with people, like-minded people. Maybe Tristan, you can start Women of Now one day.
Yeah, I was just about to say, where's the Woman of Now? Come on.
Yeah, right. I think that's needed. So definitely connect us with there. You can reach us. You can reach out to both of us on Instagram if you have any questions about the community itself. Andy, would love if you could drop that biohacking thing in the community so people can join that. I think a lot of people would love that.
The meetup group. Yeah, I'll put comment in. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then shout out to Leela. She, we really connected when I was over there on food and living healthy and, eating quality stuff. So really, appreciate you coming out. And other than that, guys, I think that's it for my end. So once again, you two, thank you for coming. And we'll definitely be doing this again, because this was a fantastic conversation. So have a great one, audience.
Yeah.
And talk to you soon.